In the spring of the following year, I found myself back in the Dominican Republic, enveloped in a warmth that had little to do with the sun. Beside me stood Laura, my new love, a radiant presence that inspired hope for a future together, hopefully for the rest of my life this time. We shared an age difference of 23 years, yet this gulf felt immaterial against the tides of our affection. Her parents, aged much like I, welcomed us with open arms, embodying a truth that resonated deeply in our hearts. True love knows no boundaries. Our love was an unyielding testament to faith, with God as the unwavering center around which our lives revolved. We were filled with joy when Laura's parents bestowed their blessing upon our intention to marry, their smiles reflecting the warmth of acceptance. We held a civil wedding, an intimate ceremony adorned with the laughter of family and friends, but we had grander plans ahead. Our sights were set on a beautiful Catholic wedding in Chicago, a celebration where I would bring her after she secured her visa. The wedding itself was simple but rich in spirit, infused with love and the genuine support of those around us. As we exchanged vows, a profound stillness settled around us, as if the universe paused to acknowledge the sanctity of our union. After the ceremony, we retreated to a nearby resort for our honeymoon, a place where the sea kissed the shore and the air was fragrant with possibility. There, beneath a canopy of stars and the lush embrace of tropical foliage, our love for each other blossomed anew, affirming the promise we had made. Once back in Chicago, I sent Laura all the information she would need to apply for her visa. The document-laden email felt both mundane and monumental, an invisible bridge reaching across miles of ocean and city. I pictured her in strong sunlight, vibrant and serene as I pressed send. A flicker of hope kindled within me for what was to come next. But mere weeks later, my optimism was punctured when I received a message conveying the haunting words, "I'm ill." It sounded like flu, something minor, a temporary affliction that would whisk away like summer rain. Yet, as days unfurled, her condition worsened. She confided in me about her fatigue and the weight pressing against her chest. Finally, she made the difficult decision to visit a doctor, who prescribed medication that held promises of swift recovery. I clung to the belief that her resilience would prevail, her bright spirit bouncing back as it always had. But when she shared the next twist in our increasingly fragile narrative, she was called to the U.S. Embassy in Santo Domingo to complete her visa application, I felt a sense of urgency bloom. Perhaps this was a sign. However, reality ensnared me with relentless clawing when Laura's visit to the embassy ended with a diagnosis I could scarcely fathom: tuberculosis. The word hung heavy in the air, threatening to dissolve all our plans into mere dust. The embassy informed her that her visa was denied pending resolution of her medical condition. This was where my heart began to break. I became very upset because she could have received far better medical attention in the U.S. than anywhere in the Dominican Republic. A thought that turned me into a helpless spectator of circumstances I could hardly control. Determined to assist, I shot over $200, an assurance that she could seek out a private doctor, any path that would lead her closer to health. I called her every day, my heart tangled in concern. Often her mother answered the phone, her words glassy and detached. "She is in bed, but she is fine." It became a mantra, a reliance on the idea that all would be well. I did not know then that the rhythms of life there moved with a cadence entirely different from my own. A languid ease spun from the sun-soaked streets and the easy smiles that accompanied everyday challenges. I remembered walking into a hospital in the Dominican Republic on a different occasion. The emergency room buzzing with life, laughter mingling with despair. Most people wore smiles even while they awaited urgent care. Doctors ambled purposefully but slowly. Nurses engaged in cheerful banter while patients waited in a stillness that felt almost serene to me. Everything transpired in slow motion, surreal and unbelievable when I had expected urgency. Laura, under the care of a new private doctor, appeared to be recovering. The last time I spoke with her, she reported she was no longer confined to her bed. She was stepping outside again, allowing the sun to wash over her. A wave of relief cascaded through me, momentarily assuaging my fears. Yet, as if the universe thrived on punctuating joy with tragedy, another wave of news crashed upon me. Her sister had passed away. Life, after all, was layered with complexities, a balance of light and shadow. Grief enveloped me as I processed the loss that had shifted the landscape of our shared existence. She was not only battling her illness, now she faced the biting wound of familial sorrow. As I struggled with sympathetic distance, I longed to reach through the miles separating us, to envelop her in comfort, to remind her that amid the chaos of her world, she was still a vibrant part of mine. And so, I resolved to be her anchor, even from afar, as we navigated this tumultuous ocean of uncertainty together. Each moment carried the weight of hope, fragility, and an unwavering belief that we would emerge with resilience forged from love. Following the sad departure of Paula, the weight of despair settled heavily on Laura's shoulders like a thick fog. Her condition continued to deteriorate. She began having trouble walking and was plagued by unrelenting coughs that seemed to consume her spirit. I could hardly bear to think of the vibrant woman I used to know, reduced now to an echo of her former self. The calls became a lifeline for both of us, my voice reaching across the sea in an attempt to grasp whatever remained of our connection. Almost every day, I would dial her number, desperate to hear her speak. But when she was unable to answer, her mother's voice greeted me with a reassurance that felt more like a balm than the truth. "She's fine, and she'll be better soon, thanks to God," she would say, her tone a blend of faith and denial. It was during these moments that my faith in simple reassurances started to wane. I began to witness how some people approached God in faith with an almost naive irresponsibility, wearing their beliefs like armor against the harsh realities of life, yet failing to acknowledge the need for tangible solutions in the face of suffering. Amidst this chaotic dance of hope and illness, I met a medical professor. He hailed from Cuba, a man whose wisdom seemed intertwined with the struggles of his homeland. He was teaching at the university where I was employed, his presence a welcomed light amidst the drudgery of daily life. One afternoon after class, I confided in him about Laura's declining health and the desperate situation she found herself in. He listened intently, nodding with a gravity that suggested he understood the intricacies of both medicine and faith. "Send Laura to the Medical University Hospital in Havana," he advised, his voice steady and sincere. "They have renowned doctors who specialize in cases just like hers." His words struck a chord deep within me, resonating with the urgency that had been gnawing at my spirit. The thought of her receiving high-quality medical care, where expertise and compassion converged, ignited a flicker of hope I had feared irretrievably lost. Determined to act, I began making arrangements for Laura to travel to Havana, ensuring she would be accompanied by one of her aunts, a source of comfort and support amidst the whirlwind of uncertainty. The process felt both surreal and empowering, the act of sending her away fueling the belief that we could still wrestle a measure of control over the situation. As the plans materialized, I found myself weaving in and out of emotions, fear intermingled with hope. Would this journey yield the healing she so desperately needed? Would the doctors see beyond her symptoms, reach into the core of her plight, and pull her back from the brink? I held tightly to the idea that perhaps the doctors in Havana would offer not only their expertise but also a glimpse of possibility, a promise that perhaps faith alone was not enough. Action must accompany belief, and within that action lay the power to restore. With every day that passed, I envisioned Laura's spirit being reignited, her laughter resonating once more, not as a distant memory but as a vibrant reality. I was determined to believe that healing was possible, that even as the tides of despair threatened to engulf us, there lay a lifeboat in this new hope, waiting to carry us to a shore where life could begin again. I phoned the hospital in Cuba on the day Laura was supposed to arrive, my heart thrumming in anticipation. The line crackled, the distant voice of the main doctor reverberating back to me with an air of gravitas that instantly upended my fragile hope. He confirmed Laura's arrival and assured me that in 3 days, he would have results from a thorough examination. As those days stretched on, they felt like an eternity, loaded with anxiety and a gnawing sense of impending dread. Finally, the moment arrived. I dialed the number to the doctor in Havana, each ring echoing the heartbeat in my ears. When he answered, his measured greeting did little to calm my apprehension. The words seemed to hang in the air as he spoke slowly in Spanish. "Mr. Garabas, first I recommend that you sit down and listen carefully. If you do not understand something or have any questions, please tell me, okay?" A pit formed in my stomach, and as I sat down, I felt my hands slightly trembling, and an unexplainable unease coursed through my body, raising the fine hairs on the nape of my neck. "Yes, sir, of course," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. In that moment, I realized just how much I wanted his words to carry good news, the kind of reassurance that could dispel the encroaching shadows of despair. But as he began to speak again, the weight of his next words crushed the remnants of my optimism. "Your wife has tuberculosis at an advanced stage. One of her lungs is almost destroyed, and the other one is seriously infected." I felt the room close in around me as he articulated the bleakness of her condition. No longer just fragments of my imagination, the grim reality swept over me like a tidal wave. I grappled with the implications of what he was saying, struggling to breathe against the tightening grip of panic. My thoughts spiraled, darting between frantic considerations of what this meant for Laura, for our future. His voice, though steady, dripped with despair as he continued. "I and my highly specialized staff here could help her recover," he said, "but unfortunately, we do not have access to the medication she needs due to the economic embargo we have from the United States." Each word fell like a stone inside my chest, heavy and unyielding. The irony of it sent my mind racing. The very country I had hoped would offer my wife salvation was now the reason for her misery. Therefore, the doctor concluded, the best thing I can recommend is that she returns to the Dominican Republic, and her family looks for the best doctor they can. Silence engulfed me as I absorbed the enormity of his statement. My world tilted askew, shifting unrecognizably. The thought of Laura navigating this turmoil without immediate help felt unbearable. A cacophony of feelings surged within me: anger, frustration, sorrow. How could fate deal such a cruel blow? As I hung up the phone, the enormity of the journey ahead crystallized. We were trapped between hope and despair, caught in a relentless struggle against an invisible enemy. I took a deep breath, steeling myself to face the immediate storm. Laura needed me now more than ever. I would do anything to bring her home and find a way forward through this darkness. As I gathered my thoughts, I knew one thing: I would not let her spirit wane. I would fight for her, even if it meant wrestling against the harsh winds of fate.
For those of you who wish to purchase the first 2 complete books of my biography, please check out the description where you will find the links to my books published on Amazon, and you can write any questions or comments below this video.
Because of the unduly relaxed laid-backness of Laura's family, which was quite prevalent in their society, as I began to notice, and the cruel insensitivity of the United States government, I decided to fly to Santo Domingo and fight for Laura at her side. The urgency of her condition weighed heavily on me, a gnawing reminder that time was not on our side. Determined to confront the forces keeping us apart, I made the flight reservation, envisioning myself landing amidst the warm embrace of the Caribbean and rushing to her side. But just 3 days before my departure, my world shattered. I called Laura's mobile phone as usual, anticipating the familiar cadence of her voice that had become my anchor in the tempest of our lives. However, this time it was a man's voice that answered. I blinked in disbelief as I realized it was her brother. "Hi, Juan, how are you?" I ventured, trying to maintain a demeanor of normalcy, though my heart raced within me like a prisoner seeking escape. "Fine, Anthony. And you?" he replied, his tone subdued and weighed down by unmentioned burdens. In a moment of urgency, I pressed on. "I'm very worried about Laura. Would you please pass me to her?" There was an unsettling silence on the other end, a hesitation that felt like a prelude to calamity. His reply struck me like a boulder, heavy and merciless. "I'm sorry, Anthony, she has passed away about an hour before you called." The words echoed in my mind, an incomprehensible void where hope had once flourished. Each syllable fell heavily upon my chest, pinning me beneath the weight of finality. I could hardly breathe as the realization sunk in. I had failed her. My mind raced through a whirlwind of thoughts, each sharper than the last, the countless opportunities lost, the moments we could have shared, the dreams that now lay in shambles. After a short, agonizing pause, he continued. Her last words were, "When will my Antonio come?" Those words sliced through the thick fog of despair, bringing forth an avalanche of emotion. I could almost hear her voice, the longing that had punctuated our every conversation, that connection spanning continents. It became an unbearable weight, the painful reminder that love is often entwined with the cruel twists of fate. In that moment, the world around me shifted irreparably, a surreal aftermath of grief and regret swirling through the air. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow towards the indifference that had plagued our circumstances, the laid-back nature of her family that had dulled the urgency of her condition, and the cruel insensitivity of the United States government that had left a multitude of people die abroad. As I stood in the cold silence of my apartment, a profound sense of purpose began to take root amid the sorrow. I would honor her memory, and I would make sure her story was told. Laura's spirit would not be extinguished. It would burn brightly in the hearts of those who loved her. I realized my fight was no longer for her life, but for the dignity of her memory, for the countless voices like hers who had been silenced by the cruel confluence of apathy and fate. I would seek out the truth, the justice that had slipped through our fingers, and in doing so, perhaps I would find a way to bring meaning to the aching emptiness left behind. I called my daughter, feeling the weight of urgency pressing against my chest. The phone rang, then went to her voicemail, a mechanical voice greeting me with the warmth I craved but could not find. "Please call me back," I murmured, my voice thick with impending sorrow. "It's urgent." I left a message asking her to let me know where we could meet. It was later that day in the evening when I received a call back. "I'll be there soon," she said, her voice tinged with concern. When she arrived, the moment she stepped into the room, I enveloped her in my arms, feeling the familiar comfort of her embrace. But the solace I sought was fleeting. The enormity of what I had to share weighed heavily upon me. With tears pooling in my eyes, I began to recount the demise of Laura, the woman whose spirit had intertwined with mine in ways I could barely articulate. "She's gone," I managed to say, my voice cracking like fragile glass. She fought so hard, but it was not enough. My daughter's eyes widened with shock, and I felt her stiffen in response to the news. I had wanted to shield her from this agony, wanting to protect her from the heavy burdens that life so freely dispensed. After a moment of silence, I straightened and drew in a breath, steadying myself. "My dear daughter," I declared, "I bought flight tickets before Laura's death to fight at her side. Now that she is gone, I am still going." I paused, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, the act feeling almost trivial against the tide of emotion surging within me. I really hate this government, this two-faced country that only thinks of itself as the best in the world while not giving a damn about the suffering and deaths in other countries that the United States could help. I curse this country, and I will return when my curse blossoms. The words felt liberating as they left my lips, a release from the pent-up frustration that had been boiling beneath the surface. I saw the reflection of my rage in my daughter's eyes, a mirror of shared pain and understanding. We were bound by this moment, caught in the web of loss and resentment that seemingly knew no end. Meantime, I continued, trying to soften the gravity of my resolve, we'll keep in touch one way or the other, and I hope you'll come and visit me one day, wherever I may be. Those last words hung in the air between us, a fragile thread spun of hope amidst our grief. With that, we both receded from each other, veiled by deep sadness, the room transforming into a sanctuary of sorrow echoing with unspoken words. A silence settled over us, punctuated only by the soft ticking of the clock, as if each tick counted down the moments we had left in this familiar embrace. I watched her face, that beautiful blend of my past and an uncertain future, and felt my heart ache with the knowledge that life was moving forward. But I was still anchored in my resolve to seek justice for Laura. A hope now turned into a mission bound to lead me away from her, even as I desired to remain close. As darkness enveloped the sky outside, I held my daughter's hands, grasping them like lifelines in a storm-tossed sea, our shared grief connecting us even as destiny drove us apart. It was in that sorrow that she and I would forge our paths, intertwined by memories, love, and a fiercely held determination to face whatever came next.
For those of you who wish to purchase the first 2 complete books of my biography, please check out the description where you will find the links to my books published on Amazon, and you can write any questions or comments below this video.